What's up everyone, Failure7x, welcome back to the channel, and this video is a video unlike anything I really do. It's normally Call of Duty or Resident Evil related or something, but if you couldn't tell, the 7x in my name comes from Avenged Sevenfold, and as you can see here, Revolver put out a post, I guess, or blog, whatever, ranking the albums from worst to best. Now, obviously, music is subjective. I know what the first one is because when I first loaded in, it like auto-scrolled me to the first one, which is, or I guess technically last place, which if you know Sevenfold, you know this one's going to be in last place. But yeah, so I guess I'll try to predict what they're going to say, then I'll go through what they ranked. They're probably going to rank it more so based on like literal success, which I guess kind of makes sense when you think about it. But yeah, well, I'll try to predict it. We'll go through, see if they're even remotely in tune with the music, I guess, if that's even, no pun intended. And then we'll go over my worst to best Sevenfold albums. So first off is sounding, which again makes sense. I feel like for me to try to predict, I'm going to subconsciously rank it the way I would rank it. But if we're going based on like actual numbers, like sales, it'll probably be sounding, waking. I don't know. It's almost in order. Sounding, waking, stage. Or stage might be second to last because they dropped that as a surprise album. So probably sounding, stage, waking, City of Evil, Hail to the King, self-titled, and then Nightmare is what they might do. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I just think about my own list. So again, we'll just go through and see what the hell they put. Again, first one, Sounding Seventh Trumpet. I mean, it's their first album. It's I don't hate this album. I actually listen to it all the time. But again, it's their worst album in terms of comparing it to the other albums. It's not a bad album, at least not to me. A7X's 2001 debut was brimming with potential. Vocalist M Shadow's fierce growls and mighty sing-alongs were infectious sing-alongs. The Rev's drumming was already mind-melting, and guitarist Zach UV was a formidable shredder, and this was all before lead guitarist Scene Gates even joined the band. That said, the album suffers from incoherent songwriting that saw the band's influences scattered messily throughout the track list, veering between punk, metalcore, and thrash, and at a discombobulating pace. It's certainly their weakest record, but the seeds were there. I agree with this. I'm pretty sure in like a behind the scenes or an interview or something, after writing this, for them to go into Waking the Fallen, the producer or whatever made, like, this wasn't recorded on a click track, I don't think, and then in Waking they made them record to a click track. I'm pretty sure it was between Sounding and Waking. It could possibly be between Waking and City, but I'm pretty sure it was Sounding to Waking. But I agree with this. Hail to the King as number second to last. See, I thought Hail to the King was like super, I don't want to say sellout-y, but it kind of was at the same time. Like they went for that 90s Metallica Black Album kind of Guns N' Roses whatever feel. But I just thought based on numbers, I'm pretty sure Hail to the King sold pretty decently. Hail to the King is essentially A7X's Black Album, like I just said. The tempos got slower, the riffs got chunkier, the hooks got bigger, and it mostly worked. The band paid homage to old school heroes like Metallica, Pantera, and Guns N' Roses across an entire album of swaggering groove metal riffs, and the respite from their usual blend of speed and technicality was more natural transitions than one would have expected. That said, despite standouts like This Means War and its mighty title track, the album does drag on its back half without the sprinting solos and pummeling drum fills. This was also the album with Aaron Ilahay. I loved Aaron when he joined the band, but at the same time, I feel like they kind of did him dirty because they ended up parting ways with him for Brooks, which I guess we'll get into later with the stage, wherever they rank this or that. And Brooks is leagues above Aaron, like no disrespect to him, but at the same time, they gave Aaron the most simple riffs to drum to. So I feel like in a weird way, maybe not on purpose or like intentionally, but they kind of set him up to fail. But you know, Hail to the King, Hail to the King ranks low for me too, because it is, again, it's not a bad album. I love the album, but it's not really Sevenfold-y, if you ask me. Six is appropriate. Spoiler alert, stage is going to be my number one. But again, the stage, it's super weird, and they dropped it. Like, they didn't really promote it, they just dropped it. They're like, hey, it's out now. I think they did the little stream on top of Capitol Records, the building, and then after that they were like, hey, yeah, here it is. I don't know if, I think the single was out before that, before they announced it. Anyway, number 5, the stage, sci-fi concepts, a Neil deGrasse Tyson feature, and prog metal grandiose, I don't know how to say that word. Sevenfold's latest album, The Stage, was a total switch up from the meat and potatoes approach of Hail to the King, and is by far their most ambitious one to date. The new drummer Brooks Wackerman joining the fold. The band will return to the dizzying guitar work with City of Evil and symphonic embellishments of Nightmare, resulting in a much more interesting, though at times clumsy, listening experience compared to Hail. They had the musical chops to pull off a prog opus, but the record still feels like it's missing that signature A7X flavor amid the pomp and circumstance. I mean, I guess I kind of agree with this. I mean, like I said, the stage is my favorite, so I disagree with the ranking, but I also know a lot of like my Sevenfold friends, or friends that like Sevenfold friends. I wish I was friends with Sevenfold. A lot of my friends that like Sevenfold also weren't really a fan of the stage, but then you got me, who I think it's the only thing that would make it perfect is if the Rev was on it, but obviously that's not the case. And even fun fact, I don't know if you can see this whole like NASA ripoff is from me being in love with the stage. The whole like space thing I kind of ripped off, at least for a little bit. I don't know. I still kind of do it. It has nothing to do with anything, but stage, I don't agree with the placement. That's my personal opinion. I can see what they mean though. So yeah, we'll go with it. The fact that they put Nightmare as number 4 is kind of crazy. But see, then again, they could also be trying to please the fans. I feel like they're going to put self-titled first because they're going to be like, this is Sevenfold. So they'll probably put Waking next and then City, because they'll be like, Waking was good, but it was still their second album. And then City was when they, you know, balls to the wall. And then self-titled is Sevenfold. That's probably what they'll say, judging by having Nightmare 4th. The band's first album without the Rev, who died tragically the year prior, is without a doubt their most emotional. Numerous songs on the record are touching tributes to their late brother, but there's also a plethora of high energy bangers like Welcome to the Family, Natural Born Killer, and the first metalcore song they'd recorded in years, God Hates Us. Dream Theater drummer Mike Portnoy was the best fill-in for the Rev that they could have possibly asked for, but Nightmare's energy dips when the ballads begin to blur together in the record's second half. Even so, some of the band's most passionate performances lie with this track list. Again, I normally don't like these music magazines because normally they just talk out their ass. And again, I don't think Nightmare, I might have ranked Nightmare, I forget. Nightmare around 4 is appropriate because there's only 7, so Nightmare around that halfway point. Again, I guess I agree with this. Waking the Fallen at number 3, which, like I just said, probably guarantees that they're going to put City at number 2 because they'll be like, oh yeah, this is when Sevenfold, you know, kind of put their foot on the gas. Maybe that's a bad analogy or whatever, but Sevenfold's 2003 breakout, Waking the Fallen, is a fan favorite for many reasons. It's the heaviest album in their discography. I don't know if I agree with that. Unholy Confessions features what might be their best riff. Chapter 4 and Reminiscence are downright gnarly with the solos, and the solos on Second Heartbeat and All Things Will End are nothing short of magnificent. Similar to Trumpet, the band's lofty ideas weren't as fine-tuned as they would be on later material, and with the album's sheer aggression and the band's unrivaled musicianship among their, what's this? New wave of American heavy metal? Peers make it easy to gloss over the few weak points. The highs are hard to beat. Again, like I just said, seeing what they're going at with this blog post or whatever. I mean, they even mention it in here. The band's ideas weren't as fine-tuned as they would be later on. This is their second album, so it makes sense. Number 3, I guess, is appropriate. I would rank it number 2. It's going to be City and then self-titled, and if not, I'm interested to see what they're going to say about it. And yep, City of Evil, number 2. City of Evil initially called some flack for the band's complete abandonment of metalcore in favor of highly melodic thrash. However, as songs like Backcountry and Beast and Harlot became more defining of the A7X sound than anything from their older records, the 2005 opus was accepted by new and old fans alike. It's one of the band's quintessential releases. Tracks like Burn It Down and Thrash and Scattered are some of the most virtuosic in their catalog, and unlike the previous 2 records, City of Evil feels more like a coherent album than a smattering of individual songs. Fun fact, City of Evil is, well, more specifically, Beast and a Harlot is what got me in the Sevenfold. I remember being on my 8th grade field trip. I guess another fun fact, I grew up listening to rap, and I really didn't listen, like I listened to metal through my family, although then again, really only my grandmother, which she doesn't even listen to metal, so I don't know what the hell's going on. But yeah, I grew up listening to rap, and I remember on my 8th grade field trip, my one friend was like, hey, you should listen to the song, and he played Beast and a Harlot, and yeah, it all went downhill from there. The second I heard the double bass thing, which I'm not saying the Rev was the best. If you ask me, the Rev is the best drummer. That's just like personal opinion and appreciation. But once I heard that, I was like, oh my god, like this is the coolest shit I've ever heard in my life. And that's what made me want to get into drumming and get into music and, you know, become a whole metalhead and whatever. And yeah, like I said, City of Evil ranks here because Waking would rank here, but wait, like they said, this is more coherent, whereas Waking the Fallen is still, it's their second album, so they're still trying to figure it out, and City of Evil is kind of when they figured it out. So even though I would rank this probably 3rd, I understand what they're getting at here. And in first place is gonna be the self-titled. It's fitting that this is their self-titled because Sevenfold's 2007 masterpiece is the one that encompasses everything they do best. The fuming groove metal of Critical Acclaim and Scream, the thrash virtuosity of Almost Easy and Afterlife, the operatic clarity of Little Piece of Heaven, the soaring hooks of Unbound and Lost. It's their most well-rounded album and their most musically impressive. Plus, it left the door open for the band to explore a multitude of new directions down the line. It's their best record so far. See, they're not wrong, because I'll admit that the self-titled is, like, if I had to explain to somebody what Sevenfold sounded like, I would show them this album, because it does kind of capture everything that they're about, and like they did say here, it leaves the door open for them to do whatever the hell they want to do. But again, with my biased opinion, I feel like this would be probably fourth, which I know a lot of people might not call me a real Sevenfold fan for saying that, but and again, when I rank these, it's not, there's really no album I wouldn't cut off, except maybe Sounding, but like when I rank this fourth, it's not like they're all pretty tight together. Like the difference between the self-titled and Waking the Fallen, almost, and everything's almost in first place, because this band can't really do wrong. Well, that's not true, but when I rank them, it's not like there's giant gaps in between, aside from, again, Sounding the Seventh Trumpet, and even then it's not that big of a gap, but it's probably the biggest gap between like the rankings. Again though, I feel like this whole blog makes sense. That's the end of it. Who made this? Eli Enos. Avenged Sevenfold's discography is all over the map. Since founding in 1999, the Huntington Beach, California band have never stayed faithful to a single sound for more than a couple albums, surfing between metalcore, thrash, groove metal, prog, hard rock, balladry, and more in the span of and more in the span of 7 full lengths. Throughout their fair share of highs and lows, rocketing to mainstream popularity but losing founding drummer Jimmy the Rev Sullivan to tragic circumstances, the band have always stayed true to themselves and a multifaceted musicians with a diverse range of creative interest, and each of their album is a reflection of that. Ranking them all wasn't easy because each represents a different era of the band, but we did our best below. See, again, normally I feel like these magazines kind of have their head in their ass, but I feel like this is, again, it's not my top or best to worst, but I understand why, or I guess I more so can see why they ranked it the way they ranked it, and I don't necessarily disagree to it to an extent. Like, I feel like this is a pretty solid list. Sounding is their worst, and I use worst loosely. Hail to the King was their safest, for lack of better words. Like, I don't want to say it was their sellout album, but they did kind of try to capitalize on the sellout 90s-ish sound. Stage, again, they kind of just dropped it randomly, and it's fucking bonkers, so 5th place makes sense. Nightmare, the single alone is, you know, put a lot of people onto the band, which makes sense, and then you leave the last 3 for Waking, which is, again, it almost has like a cult following, but then again, it makes sense because Beast and the Harlot is a lot more, like they say, coherent. It's a lot more together, and then the self-titled is like the embodiment of their sound, which they don't really have a sound, but if they had a sound, it'd be this album. So yeah, I'd pretty much put them all in first place. I'd put Hail to the King in second, and Sounding the Seventh Trumpet in third, if that even makes sense. For a lot of the same reasons that this does. I mean, I kind of just explained them. Sounding's just kind of a mess, and I mean no disrespect by that. It's their first album. Hail to the King, it's kind of safe. It is heavy here and there, but like they say here, the second half of the album gets kind of slow. Stage, I would rank first because it's just insane, and that's why I think I love it. There is a couple of slow songs on there that I'm not fond of them, but they do kind of take away from it. Nightmares, I mean, yeah, this is a solid list. My list from best to worst would be Stage, Waking the Fallen. I think it depends on the day whether or not City of Evil or Self-Titled would be third. City of Evil and Self-Titled back and forth between third and fourth place. Nightmare would be fifth, and then Hail to the King and Sounding. So yeah. But again, this is a good list. I'll give them credit. Like I said 100 times at this point, these lists are normally stupid as hell and make no sense, but this Eli Enos guy, I don't like saying his name, but you made a good list. I guess let me know if you agree with this list, what your favorite Sevenfold album or song, I guess, is, and what your best to worst, or worst to best list would be. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to talk about it, but yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. If you're new here, haven't yet already, don't forget to, I guess also, if you like this type of video, let me know in the comments as well, because I'll do more of this. I just saw this on, like, I think Twitter, and it's Sevenfold. I need content, so. But yeah, if you're new here or haven't yet already, don't forget to subscribe with the bell and leave a like or dislike if you didn't like my list or their list, which shouldn't really be a reflection of me, but yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I'm Philly7X. Thank you for watching. Now get off me.